Uh, Good afternoon. Welcome to, let's see, Monday, January 26th, 2026, 5:30 p.m. meeting of the Measure U Community Advisory Committee. The meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner McGee? Present. Commissioner Smith?
Present.
Commissioner Sala?
Present.
Commissioner Cook?
Present.
Commissioner Miller?
Present.
Commissioner Johnston?
Present.
Commissioner Goris is absent. Commissioner Novello is absent. Commissioner Jurofsky? Present. Commissioner Pascal?
Present.
Commissioner Fry Lucas? Present. Commissioner Rosa is absent, and Chair Georgioff.
Yeah. I'd like to remind, do we have quorum? I guess.
Thank you, we have quorum.
Yeah, cool. I'd like to remind members of the public in chambers that if you would like to speak on an agenda item, please turn in a speaker slip when the item begins. You'll have 2 minutes to speak once you're called on. After the first speaker, we will no longer accept speaker slips. We will now proceed with today's agenda, which is land acknowledgement and pledge of allegiance. Member Johnson, if you're willing to do it.
Please rise for the opening acknowledgements in honor of Sacramento's indigenous people and tribal lands. To the original people of this land, the Nisenan people, the Southern Maidu, Valley and Plains Miwok, Patwhan Wintu peoples, and the people of the Wilton Rancheria, Sacramento's only federally recognized tribe, may we acknowledge and honor the Native people who came before us and still walk beside us today on these ancestral lands by choosing to gather together today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation for Sacramento's indigenous peoples, histories, contributions, and lives. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the consent calendar?
Thank you, Chair. I have no speaker slips for the consent calendar.
Okay, is there a motion and a second for the consent calendar? Yeah? Okay, we have one. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Excellent. So we have a motion and a second. We can do the call just by voice. So all in favor say aye. Aye. Any oppose or abstain? No? Okay, great. And that means we will move on to the discussion calendar. First item of today is to talk about the draft fiscal year 2025-2026 Measure U programming update. Let's see. If we look at that, this is mostly to talk about, we submitted, it's been a while since we've been here, about 3 months, so welcome all back, first of all. Oh, and before we move on, I do want to actually introduce a new member. Jeff, if you'd love to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you're here or how you're here and, yeah, what you're interested in.
Hi, I'm Jeff Miller. I am recently appointed to the commission from District 5. I am interested in just public policy generally. I've lived in Sacramento for about, 11 years, 10 years, between 10 and 11 years. Also lived here years ago after college, and I work for a city government, not the city of Sacramento. And so I'm just interested in city policy in general. I am interested in the goals of this commission and the goals of Measure U, and it's a good way for me to be involved and kind of use my background in public policy and hopefully to good use.
Awesome. Well, we're really happy to have you.
Yeah.
So I will let Ash introduce the number 3 discussion calendar item, if you will.
Sure. Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. We originally had agendized this item for November, but because we didn't have a quorum, we had to cancel that meeting, so we postponed it to this meeting. So I'm prefacing that just so you're aware that this is still the first quarter data that is in the system or in this dashboard. So it's covering the period of July 1st through September 30th. as we get further into the discussion, we can talk a little bit later about some ideas on the frequency of updates moving forward. But I'm just gonna give a quick demo of what you're looking at, talk about some of the changes to what we had previously presented to you. The biggest difference is we've incorporated metrics. And so really, this is an opportunity to get your feedback and hopefully come back in the future, either in February or March, with an updated version based on your feedback, and eventually get some updates based on the second or third quarter of data. So with that, I'm gonna sort of scroll through here. If you're looking at your screen, if you push Projector A button, you'll be able to see what I'm looking at instead of turning your head to the screen. So at the very top here, these cards represent the totals that are displayed below. So right now, by default, it's displaying all departments, all categories of programs. I can use the filters. For example, if I wanted to look at just community response, I could click this checkbox here, and that amount is going to change to 39.6 million. The FTEs change up here at the top. Then, if you want to actually click into a department or category, so in this case, to kind of describe what you're seeing is, if you remember, the way we've organized the data is it's categorized by both department and category. We previously called it priority, but now that we have adopted the city council's priorities, which are economic development, public safety, and homelessness, we don't want to confuse those terms anymore, so I'm just using the term category. But in this case, what you're seeing is that 39.6 million on the left is spread across two categories on the right, which are 25.5 million for community response and then 14.1 for homelessness. You can click into any of these bars to expand it further. And so I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. You can see the programs that are listed that total the 39.6 million. And then you can use this button here that's called Metrics by Department to look at the metrics that are associated with this department. You can basically do the same thing on the right-hand side, but the difference is that these are metrics by programs and metrics by category, not department. So I know I'm kind of throwing a lot, it's like a multi-dimensional way of looking at this, but just know that whatever you're focused on, category or department, I would suggest just focusing on that and not trying to look at both at the same time. So I'm gonna stick with the left side of the screen for now, which is department, and kind of demonstrate some of the rest of this here. So like I said, under community response, this is the Department of Community Response. We have the programs. You can see the amount of the programs and then the metrics. All of these metrics are associated with this department as a whole. But if you wanted to see program level metrics, which is what we heard as a request from this commission, you would be looking at the programs and you would open up any of the programs to view those metrics. So I'll look at Office of Community Outreach here. All I need to do is click on that program. I can see it's 3.6 or 3.7 million. You can see some of that data there at the top on the FTEs. The description or purpose of the program is there. And by the way, this is the same information that's in your staff report that was originally in that table format. It's still there for reference. And then that first quarter update is included here. All of these metrics are the metrics that tied up to this specific program. I'll just briefly acknowledge that, especially with a department like community response, 90% or more of their efforts are focused on addressing homelessness. So when you look across these different programs, let me go back a little bit. So right now I'm in the Office of Community Outreach. What I can tell by looking at this is the authorized FTE is 25. So what this is really telling me is that this program within the department is primarily funding their staff. It's funding 25 staff members with those FTEs. And so the point I'm trying to make here is as we look at metrics, so in this case, we're looking at number of 311 calls received, number of cases open, number of unique locations responded to. You could easily see these metrics in some of the other programs as well. I think we were initially just, as a starting point, taking the commission's proposed mapping of metrics to programs, and so that's really what you're seeing here. And this is something that we'll just need to continue to refine and make sure it reflects reality. So if you want to close out of this, or sorry, let me back up and say you can click on then any of the metrics to see more detail. So in this case, the 20,663 cases opened over this period. I can see that the start date was July 1st and it's ending September 30th. So this is a clean first quarter metric. So in the future, we will hopefully have additional quarters that you could compare that to. You can even see that the frequency that it's collected is quarterly or reported on. The reason why we're including this is because if you think of some seasonal programs, like in the Department of Youth, Parks, and Community Enrichment, all those programs are seasonal, and so they occur in the summer. And so the metrics are basically going to be zero throughout the fall, winter, and perhaps even spring. It's really not until that summer period that covers the last quarter of the fiscal year and then the first quarter of the next fiscal year, if you kind of do that before July 1st and after July 1st period. And so in other cases, you'll see that that frequency is going to change because we don't necessarily want to keep reporting on data that's not changing quarter by quarter. So I think I'll kind of stop there, see if there's any questions. I'm really, like I said, the goal here was to get feedback. I know this is different than the last dashboard that you've seen. I could even pull that up if you were interested, but I know we were really trying to solve this problem of like, this is a lot of data, and if we just gave you a giant spreadsheet of metrics, it would be really hard to digest that. And so we're using some design principles around something called progressive disclosure, which allows you as a user to kind of click in and drill down from the top to the bottom without being overloaded with a lot of information at once. And so that hopefully is more easier for you all to digest, but again, what's important is your feedback because we're designing this for you. So I will stop there and see if there's any questions or feedback.
Yeah, I mean, first I'll just say this is awesome. This tool is amazing, and kudos to building this. Very excited to see where this goes, and I'll let some members speak. I obviously have some thoughts, but Member Saul, if you want to go first.
Yes, I echo the sentiment as well. This is really, really good. Very simple, very straightforward. And it allows, if I really want to go in and see something specific, it allows me to go and see it in a very simple but complex. I know it's complex, and I know a lot of work went into getting it to look simple like this. So thank you, Ash. This is great. The only thing, what's value?
Value represents, I'll go ahead and pull that up. It is, because different metrics are measuring different things, value is simply the number that corresponds to the units. So I'm going to pull this up specifically on number of 311 calls received. In the case here, we have 6,718, and the unit is number of 311 calls received. So the value is just that 6,718 number. If we used a term like number or percent, then it might not apply to the other metrics. So it's just kind of a generic header in that table.
Member McGee?
Yes, fantastic. I'm so happy you opened the community response one because that's one that I hear a lot, like sitting on my HOA board. So when it says cases open, do we assume that for the number of cases open that those will be closed? Is there somewhere where we can see like the open cases versus the closed cases? Because I'm sure some of the cases may have nuances that are, lead to it being open or extended period of time?
Yeah, I'm seeing that there is a metric called average number of cases closed. This is where we are missing essentially descriptions of what the metrics actually are.
It says daily on frequency.
Oh, daily, okay, thank you, okay, thank you. So we could technically multiply that by the 90 days that are within the quarter to kind of compare the two. I will also point you towards, DCR specifically has their own dashboard, so I'm gonna go to homeless.savesacramento.org. This actually has weekly data, and so that's where, because of all of the attention on this particular issue, they have lots and lots of data. So we have cases opened and cases closed up here in the top left. And you can fill, this is by week, this is weekly data. So you can go back and view, like for all of 2025, it was 48,000 cases opened and 74,000 cases closed. The reason why those numbers don't match is because sometimes there's a backlog of cases that were reported in a previous period and they stayed open for a longer period than the new cases came in. So they're not always, in the same period, you're not always closing. Just because you get to the end of a 90-day period doesn't mean you're able to close all of the cases that were opened in that same period. There's always going to be a backlog of cases that carry over.
Thank you so much. This is a really helpful information to, put out to the community as to, you have the questions on homelessness and what's being done by the city.
Member Cook or Member Miller?
This is great work, Ash. Thank you. So what I'm trying to get at is like the cost per the encounter, the cost per homeless placement, the cost per 311 call. I'm just trying to do like rough math, and I'm not sure like the math is mathing, so like keep me honest. For example, community response, is it correct to take the $39 million and then for each one of these metrics, like number of intakes into city shelters, divide that by 1,000 and say, okay, it cost the city $39,000 per intake into city shelter? Because ultimately, like the goal is to not necessarily have like these nominal metrics, but actually have some financial metrics where you can compare equivalent cities to see, is the city of Sacramento effective at placing individuals into city shelters at a higher rate, at a lower rate? But that requires like a financial metric, and you tell me if like that math is correct or incorrect or more work needs to be done.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm trying to see, okay, I see. So I think the city itself is hesitant to open up this Pandora's box, mainly because we don't necessarily account, like I think you have the 39 million divided by 1,000 equals
39,000.
39,000.
Yeah.
39,000. We have to also account for all of these other metrics, and there may be other programs that are specifically addressing those objectives. There may be multiple programs that are addressing those objectives. There may be efforts from the county that actually assist and help us to better address those issues in the first place. The place I would probably start, though, is at the programs themselves. So really looking at the cost of a particular program. So like I said, Office of Community Outreach is unique because this is, and many departments are like this, where all of the staff will be bundled together in a single program. So that's kind of the money. This is the program that funds the positions. And then there are other buckets of funds. And that is ultimately what a program is. It's just a bucket of funds. All of these are, we have buckets of funds by departments. We have buckets of funds for programs. And we have buckets of programs for categories. So if you were looking at this particular program, I know this is primarily funding the staff, but the city receives a lot of state money in the case of homelessness, the HAP funding, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what that acronym stands for. But it's kind of it's a way of blending funds where the city funds its own positions, and if we didn't fund those positions, we wouldn't be able to apply for or receive those funds from the state. Those funds from the state come in, and then we typically, I don't want to say pass them through, but we typically use those funds to actually purchase and build the infrastructure that we need to address the homelessness issue. And so there's just a lot of complexity to kind of get to that number. I think we can continue to talk about this. I think there may be better data we could provide you with. I'm not even sure where to start with that at this point, but perhaps it's a conversation with the budget office as we start to talk about the budget deliberations, which you all will be receiving updates throughout this year, or the first half of this year, on the city's budget situation. And as the budget gets proposed, those will be opportunities to learn, I mean, not just about how the city is proposing to address the deficit, but to get at more granular data to see if we actually have that kind of data available.
It's good feedback. Thanks for that. Maybe like taking a step back, just thinking about the buckets of funds. Like if I go to this website, a normal person goes to this website, they don't drill into it. They just say, oh, measure you spending $14 million on homelessness. But once you start like drilling into it, you see like community response, homeless housing, 20 million, homeless housing initiatives, 13 million. Then you have to manually add up like these programs within these departments, plus the categories to get a true number that says, how much is the city spending on homelessness this year? I don't know if like that's a feature of this design, but like, why are there two homeless? There's a homelessness category on the right, and then there's like homeless initiatives within each department, and they don't add up.
Yes. In this case, sorry, I was muted. In this case, like there are, particularly in community development, which runs our code enforcement division and addresses a lot of the blight issues and other cleanup-related violations that are associated with the city's ordinances around homelessness. The way that we're trying to describe this here is if you did click on homelessness, let me see if this actually works. Give me 1 second. Community, and then I will just be honest with you, I often get confused between homelessness and community response. They're sort of the same thing. I think we can get back to you with a better definition, but I'm here on the right-hand side where we do have both of those, homelessness and community response. I'm going to go up here to community response and show that as a category, this is different than the department, which is on the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side here, we have, and these are actually different numbers, even though they're pretty close. They're only there's only a $400,000 difference. On the left side is the budget for the Department of Community Response. On the right-hand side is the category of community response. And if I were to look up this $5 million program, the animal care / shelter program, I can see that this is actually within our community development department, not the Department of Community Response. So I think all of that is an open acknowledgement that maybe we need more unique terms in the same way that we don't want to use priority and have that mean different things in different contexts. But that's just kind of currently how things are.
This is great work. Thanks for explaining.
Member McGee?
Sorry. Nothing to say.
No problem. Yeah, so I guess it seems like I'm the last one. I mean, obviously, yeah, I said it before, I'll say it again, this is awesome. The ability to like get information that we are seeking as a group, I think is now very much available. I think, I've sleuthed through this quite a bit, and I still have questions. And I think if everyone here has also looked through this, they probably as well have questions, just as we saw like Member Cook similarly. I think we should sort of try to aggregate all these questions and figure out, are there ways we can improve this dashboard in certain ways or modify how we view the data so that those questions can be answered more readily. I think also tentatively, like Pete is coming next meeting.
Yes.
And so if there's questions around budget, that's a great time to do it as well. So prepare your questions for that meeting, please. And then lastly, given that we have, there's obviously still some work to do. Like there's some metrics missing from certain departments or what have you. There's, like when you click on the 20 million in community response housing initiative, there's no metrics assigned to that one. It says no related metrics, for example, or it doesn't have like the % FTE budget that I think that member Fry Lucas sort of wanted to get in there. So these things are coming, but I still think as a commission, we should be able to show some value from what we've already received. And so we've asked for this. Now let's try to like come up with a report or some sort of aggregation of ideas from this report that like, look what we can do now, right? So that we can kind of convince city council that yes, this was a good idea, keep investing in it, make sure that we get these remaining metrics. Or if we have questions or want some changes, that'll be invested into. Because if we ask for this and then it sort of like drops flat and we don't do anything with it, that's gonna be problematic, obviously. And then Ash probably will not be helping us continue to work on this dashboard after that. So yeah, I think if everyone can sort of take the time, look into this, get the questions they want to ask ready, maybe we can even have some sort of, like they can send them to you or something, and then the metrics ad hoc can sort of aggregate those and come up with a report or something like this. I think it would be awesome. Cool. That's all I have. Is there, okay, Member Salva?
Will is this being sent to the council members?
So we have this big warning at the top that says prototype for discussion. This dashboard is a working prototype for feedback and review. All data and information presented are preliminary and subject to change. Sorry to be bureaucratic. We have not fully discussed that. Like, so for example, if you go to the city's Measure U webpage, the current dashboard that's linked from there is the old dashboard from the previous budget year. I think city staff did do a quick internal review. I will say there are some issues that we're uncomfortable with. One of them is like the metrics where they're just not reported. We weren't able to get those metrics in time. And similarly, we weren't able to kind of do the necessary follow-up to figure out why we weren't able to get those metrics. The second issue is on this issue of FTEs as a % of budget. I'm not going to get into the details right now, mainly because I don't remember them, but there's a lot of concern about the consistency through which that number is calculated, mainly because of something called budget offsets, which is, as I understand it, a department's budget is budgeted for the amount that it's budgeted, and then there are offsets when, for example, a department receives a grant, like a state grant, and then that offsets the department's budget. There are questions about like, and this is where I can't quite get into the nitty-gritty in a way that is accurate, but the question is like, how does that affect the FTE as a % of budget, and like, are we doing that consistently across programs? I will say that was like the #1 question I received when staff was populating this data. So long story short, if we do go public with it, I think we may end up removing that, but I don't know. We haven't had that discussion. The other thing I should mention too is our new city manager, Markeisha Smith, just finished her 3rd week. She's starting her 4th week on the job. I met with her this morning. She has a really bold vision for performance metrics across the city, and we're gonna be doing a lot of work, particularly around the city council's priorities. Amy and Pete, who have presented to you before, have talked about how, as an organization, this is like turning an aircraft carrier around, and now we have a new captain of the ship, and so we are still turning that aircraft carrier around, but we're also kind of calibrating the direction that it's gonna go in, and as we systematically build or rebuild, I guess, our performance management structure, because it's gonna have the same metrics that are included here, or at least some sample of it, we want to make sure we're not duplicating efforts and confusing staff when we're asking for metrics over here and over there. And we want it to all live in the same system and essentially run a filter and say, show me the Measure U ones, show me the council priority ones. And all of that is in like a single system without having to pull different data sources at different times and all of the repetitive staff time that goes into something like that. So that's just a preview of what's to come, but yeah.
That would be great. What was the other question I had? If it was being the council, anyway, it just slipped my mind. I had another question. You mentioned the city manager and I know that she's new and she's just getting oriented, but it would be great, now I remember, it would be great if we can meet her, she could come and we have a dialogue with her, a conversation with him. That would be really good. And at some point, I know that she's being pulled at in a lot of different directions right now, but it would be nice to have a conversation with her.
I'll definitely submit that request, and yeah, just on your point, she's still meeting department directors for the first time, so it's a lot of sort of orientation and ramp up, but yeah.
And now I know what my comment I was going to make. I think it's a very valid point that you made, Teddy. Sorry. Okay. Because that's what I was thinking. So we have the first quarter report, and I agree that even to the extent possible, we should look at this, have our questions, and be able to utilize it to the extent possible in informing our discussion about our priorities that we're going to give to the finance department, that they're going to incorporate in the development of their budget, right?
Yes, and that work has already been done. The departments have your priorities. I will say, I think it's the next item on your annual report. I don't know that they're going to change drastically, but the departments have the priorities that were originally on your November agenda, and they are taking those into consideration as they prepare their budget reduction plans. And so Pete will be providing an update next month on how that process is going, but the departments do have your priorities at this point.
So in our discussions with finance as we move forward, this could help inform us, because it's 1 quarter worth of data that's important for us to know, so that we're knowledgeable and we can influence the discussion with this. So thank you for getting it done. Even though it's only just 1 quarter worth of data, it's still viable information. And you're right, we need to do something with it. Otherwise, they're going to say, we do all this work and it just sits in the shelf.
Yep. We also have our oral report coming next month, and we can incorporate some of that into, because our yearly budget review is kind of like, we go and present to budget and audit, and so, right, budget and audit, or no?
Personnel and public.
Okay. Yeah, PP&E. Then we can sort of incorporate some of the ideas that we have from looking at this metrics dashboard into that if we want to. Also, yeah, we're going to talk about it in the next item. So, Member Pascal?
I just wanted to give my appreciation to Ash. I think from the first day I've been on this commission, we've been talking about needing data, metrics, whatever. It's been a long time. And this is like leaps and bounds ahead of where we were. So I'm like, it's super impressive to see the trajectory from where we started. So thank you. I know this is like probably very tedious and thankless work. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Member Johnston?
I may have answered my own question. I'm looking through this, and there's some metrics. This is great also. Wanna kudos, amazing, et cetera, et cetera. But this, there's a lot here, right? And I'm trying to understand some of these because they might use jargon I don't know. So I wanted to see if there's like a glossary or some way. It's that fine balance, right, of putting too much work. This is fantastic, and we don't want to have like everything paragraphed out by detail. But I also, if you click on it, is that as detailed as we're gonna get? I realize there's some program detail on some of this, but for instance, like the GPIT police stuff, I wasn't sure what that was. Open up police and just says, events attended, events missed. I don't know what that means. It's just like outreach. So that's just an example of like my one suggestion, if there's like some easy glossary or some just like background info of like, do I care? They've only attended one event. I don't know, because that's what's listed here. So that's my only suggestion that I have come up with right now.
No, thank you. Just quickly, GPIT is Gang Prevention and Intervention Task Force. But yeah, I will say, we can go through these, or I can, maybe the metrics ad hoc, if there's any clarification you need, we can provide that. I think having full definitions may take some time, and that's an example of something we would want to try to align with the broader performance management efforts. And I will say, you know, once we go down that road, there may be fewer metrics. So if you recall what this process looked like last year, we kind of had back and forth interaction with the commission on kind of an iterative basis where we presented the metrics that we collect internally all across the city, and then your ad hoc committee came back to us and matched those metrics that we said we had to the programs that were listed that is funded by Measure U. And then we went and collected those values or that data, and we presented it here. And so we can continue as an iterative process to try to provide some clarity on the terms and definitions. Yeah.
I will just say this might just be user experience, because I think it was by department, and if you do it by program, then it kind of gives that explanation. I was just looking at departments, so I just saw all the metrics without knowing what program, and I didn't realize going back to programs.
Oh, yes.
It then gives you that kind of, so it's just, I think, getting used to the tool and seeing it. I wasn't too granular without being able to figure out how to get set back.
I see what you're saying. Yep. And I'll just say on that, that's actually a good example where that's a breakdown of participants by race. Like, obviously, we would just prefer that to be a single metric that's displayed as like a bar chart or a single, you know, so you could see the numbers compared, as opposed, right now, they're just kind of listed as standalone metrics. So that's definitely an area that we'll want to improve on in the future.
Member Pascal, is that a hand still, or? No? Okay, all good. Yeah, so I'll just close this one out, because I think we're done. No one else has any comments. I just want to give everyone a little bit of homework to be like, yeah, go through this, and if you have thoughts and questions, or not just about like how to use the dash, that of course those too, or like things you think could be improved, those are great, but also like, you know, using it in the sense of like, why do we spend this much on that? Or this seems like a really great return on investment for what we're getting, or whatever the thoughts might be, just so that the metrics ad hoc can sort of compile all these thoughts and create some sort of letter for our next meeting to like bring it as a draft. Because I think, like I said, I really would like to use this quickly and get sort of like a turnaround. And show that we're, like, this is a valuable tool and that we want to keep growing with it. All right, then, are there any public comments for this agenda?
Thank you, Chair. I have no public speakers for this item.
Okay, then we can move on, because I don't think it requires a vote of anything. Basically, this next discussion item is the City of Sacramento Measure U Community Advisory Commission 2025 Annual Report and 2026 Work Plan. It's just a review what we put together and sort of approved last year. We already sent from this group that did they put that report together. We sent what we wanted to Pete, like subsection, and then we still have not presented or given this to City Council in any form, if I'm not mistaken. And so there were some feedback of like, if there's any comments or concerns with what we currently have before it goes to City Council, then we can talk about that now and or PP&E, before it goes to PP&E, we can talk about that now and make some final adjustments, essentially, if anyone cares to. I'll give you guys the floor. No? Okay. Member Cook?
Spirit of providing feedback here, let me get out the actual section. Are you gonna project it on your screen, or do we just talk through it?
I don't have the ability. Maybe Ashley, you can present
To the control room, I am plugging my laptop back in. Let's see. I did have it open. Was there a page number we're looking?
Yeah, hold on. Section C, 2026 program recommendations.
Do you have a
You just
page?
search for that. I think it's on page 7. Is this the wrong one? No, this is a much larger one. I downloaded the file from the agenda. It's 8 pages long. But if you look for the phrase 2026 program recommendation, that's the body of content. You see that? Okay, so for the most part, we went through this. We had many meetings. We outlined like what the priorities are, and directionally, I think most of us agree on this. Where I'm getting the disconnect is that public safety is not called out as an area of alignment in the 2026 program recommendation. And the reason I think this is not correct is if you look at what the citizens of Sacramento want to prioritize with the Measure U budget, you will see that public safety is in the top 3. It's not my opinion. It's like what the citizens of Sacramento want. You can see this in the 2023 Community Response Survey. City surveyed 780 people, over-indexed for like low-income districts and communities. And when it was all said and done, the top 3 priorities were homeless housing, mental health, and public safety. I see sprinkles of homeless housing, mental health throughout this areas of alignment, but there's no public safety. So because the citizens of Sacramento, through the 2023 community survey, expressed that the top 3 areas of focus for the Measure U budget include public safety should be one of the areas of alignment in this table, and it's not, so I'm requesting we add it. Does anyone object to that? What thoughts do you have?
I'll just add that the council workshop did also do a survey, and they did have pretty close to what you're saying. It was like, number 1 was public safety, number 2 was homelessness, number 3 was housing, which I assume like homelessness and housing are fairly closely related. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't see a reason we couldn't add it here. I think we might want to figure out what we mean by that, right? So what does the notes sort of section look like? So if we say public safety, what do we as a group agree fits in notes?
I think the path of least resistance is to take the definition out of the 2023 community survey and just use that verbatim. It's literally what the citizens of Sacramento put in the survey as part of their priorities.
Do you have that language?
I mean,
off the top?
I don't know, I can send it to you afterwards.
Sure.
It's on the internet,
Sure.
but
Okay.
yeah. That's all. Thanks.
Any other thoughts on the draft that we have so far? Member Sala?
I just want to comment on his comments. So I agree that, yeah, public safety, but and I'm not sure I agree that we should use the definition that's in the community survey, because the community surveys, if you look at the demographics of who responds to those community surveys, it doesn't represent our communities typically. It's more middle-aged, middle-class, white who responds to those surveys, because the survey is long and it requires people at that bracket or in that demographics, they're more willing to respond to a survey versus a mother or a father who's working 2 jobs, Latino, may not have command of the language, and even though it's in Spanish, but they're not going to respond to the survey, so you're not getting their feedback. So I think the results are a little skewed, And I would just say a definition, because if you were to ask right now, Latino community, if they think public safety is important to them, they would say no. I can guarantee, they would say things like jobs, affordable housing, things that make their life better, and they don't think that the police would provide them, and they don't. Well, I'm not going to say that, they do, but that they feel safe because we have more money and more police officers on, in the field. So they might answer public safety would be more in the area of prevention of before the young people get into trouble or start committing crimes, that there be more in the prevention arena and the whole thing around gang violence, et cetera. So if we're going to put it, we should use a description that just doesn't say, it's more police on the ground. However, I don't know how it's in the community survey, but it needs to be a little broader description. So yes, the people who respond to that community survey, yeah, they want more police in their neighborhood. But the people who don't respond to the survey, and for my community, don't want more police in the neighborhood. They want more programs for the youth that are about prevention versus having more police on the streets.
If you truly believe that the people in the lowest level of the socioeconomic ladder in the city of Sacramento want to actually defund the police
No.
and reallocate funds to another program, I encourage you to put forth a body of evidence that proves that. What I don't want to do is get into a debate about cops good, cops bad. What I'm trying to put forth is based on the 2023 community survey, which was structured in such a way to over-index on low-income communities, like it over-indexed on individuals in Oak Park, individuals in Del Paso Heights, by sending more surveys in more languages to those communities to address the problem that you've described. With that said, the results of that community survey still want public safety as a top 3 priority. So I hear you, but I reject the premise that the survey is like skewed towards middle class, white, affluent individuals in East Sac, because that is like objectively not true. And if you think certain levels of the socioeconomic ladder want to defund the police, put forth a body of evidence that proves that.
Okay, first of all, I didn't say defund the police at all.
Reallocate
No,
funds from the city
Wait a minute,
budget.
I didn't interrupt you.
Okay.
I didn't say defund the police. I never said that. I'm saying that the public safety, a lot of people think public safety is more police, and I'm saying it isn't just that. And in my community, they want more prevention programs that deal with the youth, that help the youth stay out of trouble, and also the gang violence that exists. And poverty, the whole issue around poverty, and we can get into a big debate about that, and I don't want to. What I'm saying, yes, you can put that in, and I agree, add it in the alignment, but maybe we should be more thoughtful in the description and not just say it's about adding, more to the police budget.
I'm going to read the description of the
Okay.
survey first, just so we have a ground to stand on, and then we can modify that as we see fit. So public safety services, example, police, fire, emergency medical services, citywide emergency management, and youth-centered prevention services. So it's quite a large bundle. So it's hard to discern, what people are saying. Oh yeah, like I want fire, or I want emergency medical services, or I want youth-centered prevention. Because it was bundled, it is quite difficult to parse out what people were excited about when they said, yes, I'm for this. And maybe because of that, it might be good to just use that as a statement, because it does include sort of all the above. But yeah, I'm happy to hear other people's opinions. Member McGee, I think you were next.
I think it's a question of an equity lens, right? And, we could use whatever verbiage was crafted based on whatever survey went out. But I think that we cannot act as if there's a disparity. There's not a disparity with equity and the equity lens and how we craft and how, surveys are administered across any community, right? Like we could pick any community that has a diversity of people, right? There are going to be those that are more prone to respond versus those that are not for many different reasons. So I just think, whatever one we go with, the question is, are we looking at it with an equity lens? And what is that equity lens? And are there any other lenses that we can overlay to make sure that it's most inclusive to the biggest amount of the population possible? I don't know if that is possible, but I think the question is equity. It's not about police and defunding, right? But we cannot sit here and act as if disparities in equity and in engagement at a community and city level does not exist, because it does. And if we say it doesn't, therein lies the problem, because we're ignoring that. And you just can't, from my perspective, right? I'm speaking on behalf of myself. We can't ignore that these things don't exist in Sacramento. Just as a commissioner here, but also on an HOA board in my regular community, and we're paying dues, right? Like, we're in an affluent neighborhood. The apathy just to get a response on our community surveys in our own community with our own homeowners, our response rate is like, we can never pass anything. The response rate is that low. And that's in a community that's supposed to check all the boxes. And I use that as a broad example, but, so how much more other communities and other areas? If in my own community, just from my lens, as a HOA member, it is so hard to pass anything for our community in a middle-class community that should have the highest response rate, and it doesn't. Just a lens that I'm using in terms of crafting my response, so where I'm coming from in terms of my response. So just really, what is the equity lens, and what can we overlay to ensure that equity exists in whatever verbiage that we choose?
Member Drofsky?
Yeah, I do think that it's missing as being a called out area of alignment, but I also think that in the notes part that we have here, that's in the draft, public safety is a very broad definition, and it's inclusive of a lot of things. There's the response to a public safety issue, and then, as Member Sala was mentioning, there's prevention is a huge aspect of public safety. And, Commissioner Cook, for it to be narrowed down to public safety equals police, I don't think that's what Member Sala was saying whatsoever in her conversation, in her comment. And I think that I do agree that it should be called out, but I think there's also the idea that public safety can be embedded is a factor of a lot of other programs. So when we talk about youth and community programs, that's a public safety program. When we talk about libraries, that's a public safety program. When we talk about homelessness initiatives, that's a public safety program. All of these have public safety aspects to them and have impacts on public safety. And so to have that narrow of an idea of what public safety is, I think limits us. And then when we actually do look at the Measure U programs that are funding public safety and the police department specifically, that's just funding staffing. And as we saw whenever they presented, that they're having how many kids go through these programs and actually only hiring a few. Meanwhile, we have community youth programs that are incredibly successful, that are serving a large amount of youth, and we know that they have public safety impacts. So just because it's not the police doesn't mean it's not public safety.
Either Member Miller or Member Cook?
I agree with your point. Like, part of public safety is long-term preventive programs that provide after-school options for youth, summer programs, etc. I just think the challenge is, if we start saying everything is public safety, then nothing becomes public safety. Like, it's too broad of like an abstract concept. And all I'm trying to advocate for is that we took a survey of the community in 2023 and asked them what are their top 3 categories of funding for Measure U. Public safety, as it was read out, is number 3, and therefore it should be included in the areas of alignment. That's it.
I feel like I've been beating a dead horse, that this is, I think, central to the problem of what we're all facing, of like, what does Measure U do? What is our purpose? And I think we've all kind of settled on, it feels like what we want it to feel because we're members of the community. And I think if Commissioner Cook feels that it's important, then it should be included. And I think as a citizen of this, I've known a lot of people that think public safety is very important to this. I agree definition's important, but if you look at all the definitions here, they're pretty vague, let's be completely honest. Like, they're one sentences, right? So this is a very important issue. There's a lot of strong and I think reasonable positions on the whole spectrum, but I don't think this goes against what Measure U is by including something that a commissioner feels is important for the community, personally. This might be a preamble to something I was gonna maybe bring up at the end, that I'm personally trying to find time to set aside of putting a real analysis of all the various ballot propositions and all that stuff to kind of figure out like what it is, how we're supposed to measure it, because that's a constant thing that we're struggling here with. And I just want to create space that I think that's good, because I think that's our job. And so I just want to say that I think if Commissioner Cook thinks it's important, I don't think that it's unfounded either. I'm trying to look at the report. I'm trying to also look at what we did, but I think we only had, I don't know, I forget, like how many participants in our survey? That's something I need to go back to and look through. 11, yeah. So it's like, there's not a lot of data, right? And the 2023, I'm looking through it. It is a little vague on what public safety is and defined as, and I think that's a fine debate to have. So I just want to say that's something that I just want to flag, as I always do. We're still working on what Measure U stands for and how we articulate that.
Okay, so to sort of bring it all together, I agree that it should be added. I think, like, again, even if just one person thinks it's important, I don't see that we shouldn't find the space to fit it. And on that note, the only question was, I guess, the verbiage. And I still kind of do feel that the existing survey, although vague, is maybe the best thing because it's vague. For example, having police, fire, emergency medical services, citywide emergency management, and youth-centered prevention services. If we want to specify that there are many other programs that also provide public safety, I think that could also be included in the description. And we have listed them above in that document. However we want to word that. Is that something that everyone is, sort of okay with? Or is anyone strictly opposed to it? Maybe that's a better question. Okay, cool. Are there any other, so moving on from this then, are there any other thoughts about this draft that we want to change or modify before it goes to PP&E? Okay, all right. Well then, in that case, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. We have no speaker slips for this item.
Great. Okay, then we can move on. Also just say, like, definitely,
This item does require a vote.
it does require a vote. Okay, well, I guess we can vote on what I just sort of concluded, which was we can add it, stick to mostly the same verbiage as the 2023 community survey, and then we can also add something where we believe that there are many ways to achieve public safety, including the programs that we've listed above, if that sounds reasonable to people. I guess we'll call this one.
Excellent. I can do the roll call vote.
I guess I'm a first, I do need a second.
We do have to have a, so you made the motion.
Sure.
And does that motion include authorizing?
I will fix it, yeah,
to make
sure.
those
Yeah, I'll make those
additions?
changes, yeah. Is there a second? Great. Member Miller?
Excellent. I'll now do the roll call vote. One moment. Commissioner McGee,
Accept as presented.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes. Agreed. Yeah.
Commissioner Sala,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnston,
Yes.
Commissioner Goris is absent, Commissioner Novello,
Yes.
Commissioner Jarofsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Pascal,
Yes.
Commissioner Fry Lucas, Commissioner Rosa is absent, and Chair Georgioff.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Excellent. All right, moving on to number 5. Approval of the 2026 Measure U Community Outreach Engagement and Commission communication strategy. I think this one will, oh wait, am I mixing one? Is this Member Sala?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Member Sala, do you want to present this one?
Yeah, so we met, gosh, in October there was a few of us that met with community engagement, and we discussed ways that we could work with the community engagement department in not reinventing the wheel, but leveraging what they're already out there once a month in the community doing. They have their City Connect programs and that they do once a month, and there were other strategies that we came up with. And we did have a great discussion about this City Connect, taking that opportunity, because I know I attend, there's a couple of commissioners that I've seen go and were there, but that making it more formal, that we really try to go, particularly when it's in a district that there's a commissioner in the district, they try to pick different areas where they hold these events. And I try to go to most of them when my calendar allows it, but that it be more strategic and that commissioners go and then we're visible, we're there. They'll introduce us. We can say a little something. We can have we thought of having, that's where we would have our table. We would have your dashboard there. And it's not good for them to just have information to hand out to people unless a commissioner's there that can be by the table and can talk and engage and have that dialogue. It still remains to be an unknown for a lot of people. What Measure U, I still get questions all the time, what is Measure U actually being funded, and et cetera. So if we have the dashboard there, not that this one would be ready, but we can have last year's, which is ready, and we can have a copy of the ordinance, have a table, and we would be there and have a dialogue. That would get more information out there to those that attend. On an average, there might be like 25 to sometimes 50 people in attendance, even more. And so we came up with strategies, and you can, I'm not going to read it. You can read it and see what the strategies are around the City Connect. We also spoke about wearing a T-shirt that identifies us, a different color, because they have, so the way they identify a city staff is they wear the Hawaiian leis, and that's how you know it's the city staff. We talked about maybe having some way that we could be identified. But I just think if we're by the table and we're there and we're talking with people, that would identify, we're identified as Measure U, and people can ask us questions. They also said they would introduce us. And then the other one, that's an important one that I know that we have discussed and shared with all of you, is the importance of getting surveys, being able to talk to the community in some way, and having simple questions about Measure U, that we want information that maybe the community survey is not giving us exactly what we want, is asking our city council. So my council member is going to be having a community forum in the next few weeks. So I've approached her to see if she would allow me as her commissioner to ask. We can just, just the questions that we asked that were developed at the last survey that was done by Stanford Settlement, taking a few of those questions and just asking people there, not reinventing the wheel, but engaging at that community meeting that she's holding and asking questions and collecting information from that neighborhood, that community. and having all of the commissioners do the same thing with their council members, whether it's at a community meeting, because they all have their community meetings at least once a quarter. So, and those were kind of the strategies we came up with in trying to get the information out to the community about Measure U. I think that's, am I missing something?
One of the other things we talked about was the fact that the City Connect is all over the place, all over the city. And what we would like to do is to have some kind of a sign at their sign-in table or guest table that says that we're supporting their efforts.
Oh, yeah.
This is
right.
supported by Measure
Oh,
U.
yes, yes. What about that? Yes.
In fact, just a little clarification about, I don't really need it, about how to get involved as an individual commissioner, and in what has already been said, would be to go to our particular district and find out what activity our district council people are doing, and go to one a year, present a standard survey or whatever we're going to call it, get that feedback at that time, and bring it together to analyze it. And if we each obligate ourselves to at least one event, we'll have a lot more information about what's going on out there than we do now. And just work with your district, one event, and then use that as a way to get to more than 11 people.
Yes, and I forgot one important piece too. I think that is, yeah, if you can't go every month, which I really encourage you to try. It's fun, and you get to meet people from not only the staff that attend, but community people that attend from different areas of Sacramento. So, but I forgot, so community engagement has a podcast, and we spoke about that, and they would interview us and do a podcast just all around Measure U. So that's using their technology, and they said they would give us a whole space, a podcast or a session for Measure U. And it could be several of us, one of us, it could be our chair. So that was the other, I thought that was good.
The City Connect does the events in different districts, but you can
Districts, yes.
actually go to them and ask them to do one in your district, right?
What?
We can actually go to them and say, District 8 would like to have a Connect
Yes.
activity.
Yes,
You can actually request that they come to your district.
right.
I think it would be pretty awesome to have like a sign-up sheet if we wanted to sort of organize between ourselves which events people wanted to go to.
Oh,
And then like make sure that we have a good coverage. We don't, maybe not everyone, but you know, not every event, but at least, you know, if people were interested, they could sign up, and it'd be cool to also go with a buddy so you don't feel like you're alone or whatever. Yeah, if you guys want to like put something together to like make that happen, that'd be awesome. And then maybe we could just route through ASH so we're not like breaking the Brown Act or anything, but like.
Deal is, we don't know what's going on in your district. That's why you have to contact your council person.
I see. So these events aren't predetermined or no?
okay, so
they
there's
are
the city,
predetermined.
there's the City Connect,
Yeah.
but then there's like finding out what your council member is doing.
Oh, I
as a
see.
community event. That's a separate, so there should
it.
be two opportunities to be out there in your district. One is through City Connect, and the other would be if your council, like Vice Mayor Talamantes is having a community meeting. So I'm going to be there, and I want to be able to use the dashboard, put that out there, and then ask questions and just engage with the community that's going to go and attend anyway. They're going to be there to hear her.
And your neighborhood associations.
Oh, yeah, the neighborhood associations.
Just a quick clarifying question on the dashboard. In the past, we had a paper fact sheet that we haven't updated. Happy to update that and provide you copies with it. I was just, as a clarifying question on the dashboard, were you actually talking about like bringing a computer or an
No,
iPad?
no.
Oh, just the
Just the-
printout,
yeah.
the fact sheet?
No, that's,
Okay,
that's
okay.
too much. Well, the first time I try to show someone, they'll walk away from me.
It would be interesting also, because you mentioned survey questions, like even just like a simple, like we have like a big, I don't know, like chalkboard where people can just like mark what they think is like the most important or something, or I don't know, just to make it a little bit larger to get people interested or something like that would be maybe cool. But
Definitely something real simple.
yeah, yeah. Or put like a ticket in a box, or I don't know, just something interesting. And then you can even raffle something off at the end, whoever participated. I don't know, anyway. Okay, so then I guess, are there next steps that you guys want to take on this, or what are you guys thinking as next step for the commission?
What are you asking?
I guess, what do you want us to do next? Like, what are our next steps with this? And
Well, I think my understanding is getting all of you, we're proposing it, bringing it to you as our strategic plan, having a discussion, which it sounds like we kind of did, and then approving it as going forth,
okay,
right?
sure.
Correct?
Yeah, sounds good. Are there any other comments on this?
Anything that
Member,
needs to be added or clarified?
Member Miller or Member Cook?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, you mentioned getting feedback from people while you're out there doing these events. You mentioned a few different kind of creative ways, but is there a thought about doing like our own survey? Like using a Survey Monkey or something like that?
That's what we're saying.
Yes.
Okay, so would you have like a QR code that people could enter it on do it on their phones, or?
Oh,
My husband has a flip phone, so.
oh, no, but that's.
So you're talking about paper?
No, but that's the QR code.
It's retirees mostly.
No, but that's,
So you're talking about a paper
Yes.
survey?
For some,
Like a,
well, because I'm old school, but I know that's, no one's gonna do it if I do it that way. But a QR code, that's an easy way to get it, and a simple, they can fill it out right then and there.
or
Yes.
you can just have a simple, 1, 2, 3, I always say simple, yeah. What's your name, blah, 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 what do you think, ding, 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 thank you, goodbye. You know, you just have the questions on a little piece of paper, you write it down, you have interaction with the community, you're speaking. 3 or 4 questions are always the same, and then you write it because you're talking to the person, and then they go away, then you talk to someone else, because we're also talking about interaction with our community and our council members.
Or maybe we can just do both.
Yeah, I think we can talk
Younger
about
people
that.
aren't gonna wanna be,
Yeah,
look at you and say, what? They're gonna wanna do the QR code. But maybe we can do both. I think that's a good idea.
Member Drofsky?
Yeah, I really like these ideas. I think one thing I would add when we're going to these is trying to encourage folks to come to these meetings as part of that outreach. I know we've talked about this a little bit within the commission, but we don't get a whole lot here. But this is actually because of the nature of our group. We're talking about the things that are the highest priorities for the communities, and we've all watched or attended a city council meeting. It's very hard to have an opportunity to speak at those or to be able to have an opportunity to talk about an issue that maybe isn't on the agenda or even get to speak to something that's on the agenda. Here's an opportunity for folks to be able to come, to be able to hear what the different programs are doing, to talk about priorities, and we have plenty of time and space for them to be able to share, and we can hear from them too when we're thinking about making our recommendations for future budget years too, because we're here to represent them, and so this is a great place for them to be able to come and talk about those priorities. And there's actually space for them to get to do that. So I think really encouraging people that, you know, if you can't go to a city council meeting, if it's difficult to be able to speak, if you're nervous to do it at something like that too, right? There's always a big crowd, or it can feel really intimidating with all the different council members there, right, and the mayor. This is a really safe and easy space to be able to have your voice heard and be able to share that here.
Yeah, I like that thinking. And so when we go, whether it's at a community meeting or we go to the City Connect, we should look at so the City Connect is always the third Thursday of the month. So that Thursday before the city council agenda is printed out, look at it and see what's on the agenda and say, this is going to be on the agenda, but, because it's budget time right now, and for here on out, for most of them, it's going to be talking about the budget. We're also talking about the budget, and we're also engaging and making priorities that's going to influence the budget, so you can come. I think that's a great suggestion to encourage attendance to come and make it interesting and how it connects to what's happening on the city council. So, yeah.
Member Noveo?
Hi, everyone. I'm gonna stay this and try to be as careful as I can. One, could you please appoint me to that ad hoc, please? I think I have been asking for specific write-ups or what the strategy is, because right now we are talking about different things and we are speaking in different languages, in where we then go into adding a little bit more confusion when we go out to the public. I think there's a point in where we all have to come together, really realize what's the objective, what's the language that we're using, what are the strategies, what are the synergies, what are the timelines, how are things gonna really cement in a way that really allow us to not only communicate that objective, but also be as effective as we can, not only when we're in these meetings, but also outside of the community, in the community. So I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of suggestions. I think you know me enough, but I think you also know me enough that I'd rather figure that out and really strategize in a way that is as productive as possible for everyone. So I would look forward to joining that committee and get to work, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
So is this an item that we vote on, or what I'm hearing is that maybe in this strategy, I did send out a summary of our meeting back in early November. But so this strategy that's before us right now, what I thought I heard you saying it might not be quite ready and we need more work before we vote on it. Did I hear that correctly?
I think so. I think that there are specific elements that I will hope, and if there's anybody else who have a different perspective, please voice them. When it comes to the type of work that we're going to be doing out there, the objective is to bring more people into these meetings. Is the objective is for people to drive more traffic to the dashboard? Is the objective to people to just have a general understanding of what's going on?
It's all those things.
It's all, yeah.
But each one of them needs a specific type of mechanisms that may be internal and external, that we need to ensure that we not only all understand and agree that we all can utilize to ensure that it's not only cohesive, but allow us to really accomplish or have some sort of measurable impact to our efforts. That's what I'm trying to communicate.
Okay. So we will postpone this until next month, and we'll have an amendment plan in place.
I think from my perspective, like if there's events that are coming within the next month, then
Yes,
like
we can
jump on those or
Yes.
what have you. But if we're trying to create like, hey, what is the strategy you want to do this year? It'd be awesome to have something in writing that's like, and then sort of get volunteers to join in when they can or what have you, to me. But yeah, I think if you guys want to think on it a little bit more or what
That's-
have you, it's up to you guys. It's up to the ad hoc. I did want to actually clarify just real quick, that ad hoc, community outreach ad hoc, currently is Member Fry Lucas, Member Drofsky, Member Goris Jr., Member Pascal, Member Rosa, Member Sala, and now Member Naveo. Does that align with staff?
That's,
7, which
it
is
is
fine.
7, which is 1 under quorum, so.
We're good.
That's good.
Yeah. Is there anyone who doesn't want to be, who is on that but doesn't want to be on that now? Just if somebody else wants to join or something like that.
But is,
Because they've already been communicating.
Oh, it'd have to be a new ad hoc. Sure.
what?
Good point. Okay, fair enough. It's got to remain unless we wanted to remake a new, for like 2026 year ad hoc, then we could shuffle up people who like leave and join, but yeah.
So Member Rosa, is he still here?
I believe so.
Because he has not been he has not participated in any of our discussions.
He had a conflict tonight. It's actually the homeless point in time
Oh, that's
count. So
right,
he
it's a
volunteered
count.
for that to help count
Okay.
unhoused individuals and couldn't make it tonight.
Okay.
Okay, I guess unless there's any other speakers on this, then we can move on to the next one. Good deal. Okay.
For the record, I have no public speakers on the item.
Yep, okay. Then we'll move on to number 6. And I guess we'll try to finish in the next 30. So the next agenda item is development of fiscal year 2026, 2027 budget recommendations. And it says oral report here.
Yeah, I can just clarify. We wanted to give you the opportunity to start talking about the next year's proposed budget as soon as possible. So we're just going to stick this item on every agenda until we get to a final budget adoption. So not necessarily expecting like significant discussion at this point, but just to highlight, one of the things that I heard in the last item is that you wanted to invite folks to come and potentially present their budget priorities. So you might want to pick a date now and start planning around that. It would take a lot of outreach to get folks to like show up. And so this item is probably less about substance in terms of what your actual budget recommendations are going to be, and maybe more about the process. So thinking about how you want to approach giving recommendations to City Council on the budget. Next month, Pete, our Director of Finance, will be here to give you all just an update in terms of where we're at as a city. I believe in May, you will receive the actual proposed budget that's going to have those actual proposed cuts to close the deficit. Potentially, they could propose new revenues, but it's most likely going to be substantial cuts. I don't even have the number at this point. I believe it was in the ballpark of 60 million that was projected last year for the upcoming deficit. So like I said, this item is really just for you all to kind of discuss how you want to approach giving your next set of budget recommendations to the City Council.
I'd also love to have on here the departments that are going to come and present to us like the month before. So like, I think right now, the fire department is going to come next meeting. Is that right? Most likely.
Yeah, we're actually trying to get the fire department at this meeting. Couldn't make it, so yes, we can put in that request, and then it would be great to know if one department is okay, or if you want other departments, and we can continue to extend those invitations. And then actually, just as like kind of a sanity check, do you all want to try to get all the departments in before May, or only the substantially funded, Measure U funded departments? I apologize, like this was like not on my radar. I know in your work plan, actually it does suggest a schedule, but yes, at a minimum, we should be talking at every meeting what the next meeting is going to look like in terms of any department presentations that you're requesting.
Yeah, my primary reason here is so that we can sort of talk together on like, what are the things we really want to dig into with this department, right? And we can do that together ahead of time, because it's very difficult to do like, you know, they come and then we hear their presentation, but I don't know, it's a little bit like, maybe too late or something like that to like get ahead of the curve. And then on top of that, it also gives them time to prepare. So if we have questions, like there have been times where someone has come and they haven't been able to answer our questions, or they would like need to get back to us, we can change the expectation to be like, well, we gave you, you know, we were giving you the questions 30 days ahead of time essentially, and that way they can come prepared for those sorts of questions. Anyway, Member McGee.
Thank you, Ash, for the gentle jog of memory. And so, two things. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on what I was thinking. So May is the date deadline for when we should kind of have our rubric together of what we want to do. So May is the deadline. And then secondarily, I know previously last year, we were kind of in a cadence of having the department. So my question that we get the departments that didn't get to come before us that are remaining to start and head up, so we can have at least one complete like round of seeing all the departments, and then go forward and maybe think about how we want to focus on for this year. But I think, so that's a clarifying question as well. So there were a few departments that we didn't get to see, because I know we didn't meet in, I believe, November, and then we didn't meet in December. So we should have some departments that did not get a chance to come before us from last year before we start looking at this year. That's the complete thought.
Yeah, I'll quickly add, I don't want to show my screen again, but in the dashboard, since they're kind of in order from most Measure U funding to least Measure U funding in terms of those bar charts and how they're laid out in the left column, I will say we got through Convention and Cultural Services, which was at 3.6 million. Below that, you start to get into some somewhat obscure, well, not obscure, I should say. The Office of Public Safety Accountability is under Mayor Council because they actually report directly to the council, not the city manager. So they have $2 million in Measure U funding. They had a change in leadership last year, and so they were unable to present. But below that, I just wanted to flag the three other departments are Human Resources, Information Technology, and City Attorney. I don't want to downplay those departments. I just kind of want to transparently share with you what the specific programs are, just so you know we don't go invite the city attorney's office and then you show up and you're like, they have $300,000 and I'll just read it to you. Increase staffing to address legal mandates related to the release of police videos and documents. Like if you want to have that presentation on a $300,000 in Measure U funds, we can extend that invitation. But IT would be, information technology would be kind of systems and infrastructure. That's at $450,000. It includes 311 and a few other systems. And then Human Resources does have our Office of Diversity and Equity at $500,000. They're doing some pretty interesting work. You all might be interested around specifically metrics and results-based accountability. So all of that is to say, just to put a bow on this, the departments you did not hear from were Office of Public Safety Accountability, Human Resources, Information Technology, and City Attorney. So I would just want to pose to the commission the question of, do you want to hear from one or all of those departments, or do you want to take a pass on some of them?
I'll start and just say, I think we definitely need to hear from the Office of Diversity and Equity. They came and presented their GIS tool before, and it was fascinating. And the fact that we're both trying to do metrics-based accountability seems imperative that we talk to each other. So that one's huge. The other one with the City Attorney Department, I don't know if we need a presentation, but there have been, in like our survey that we did internally, just us, where we were like, what are the things that we think don't necessarily fit within Measure U? Legal mandates related to release of police videos and documents, we don't think necessarily. I mean, there was a good plurality of people who didn't think that this fit. But because it's a mandate, it's not like something that, it's just something that city has to do. It's not something that we're like, trying to foster in our community. Sort of like the ADA renovations, obviously important stuff, but it's not necessarily something that Measure U feels responsible for. So I don't know if we need necessarily a presentation from them, but regardless, I'll let other people talk on this as well. Or Member McGee, did you have any final thoughts or?
Thank you for that. Based on what you said, you know, for me personally, just myself, I would want to see all of them, like even like the legal office, right? Because like, I don't really know what, I mean, I know what they do fundamentally, but it might be interesting to see. I know. I was trying to not look at Angela. I was trying to like not look that way. But I think it would be interesting, right? Even though like it's not a priority, if we can maybe get them within one meeting so it's not extended, like we can just have one session focused on getting those 4 offices in, because we might find out something that we didn't know. That is impactful to our city and to our residents, that is just not surface and to our knowledge base, so.
Yeah, that's
For me,
fair.
I would want to see all of them, but I'm flexible, I'm not invested.
That's fair.
in one or the
Also,
other.
given like our shorter time presentation preference, like maybe they can just be like 5 minutes and then they can leave or something like that, you know, that would be fine. Okay, noted. Member Cook or Member Miller?
I think if a department or program receives funding from Measure U, they're obligated to speak to the Measure U Commission. Like, it doesn't matter if it's $30,000 or $500,000. Office of Public Safety is $2 million a year budget. That's a lot of money, and it's crazy to think that relative to other budgets, we should consider not having them present. No, like, they should present if they receive Measure U funding. And I think there's actually a problem. What I'm noticing is that departments are not compelled to speak to this commission, like the Office of Public Safety. Many reasons they didn't speak, like last year, I think that was a reschedule. The fire department was supposed to speak, didn't speak, whatever. It seems a pattern is emerging where departments which receive funding from Measure U are not incentivized to actually speak to this commission, and that's a problem. So I'll take it a step further and say, every department needs to speak to the Measure U Commission to present their vision. And if they can't be bothered to even come here for an hour, they shouldn't receive funding. And it should be a hardline no from us, because these are millions of dollars. We're running a budget deficit. It's not unreasonable to get them to take an hour out of their day to present their priorities for the Measure U funding. If they can't do that, they shouldn't receive the budget.
Fair enough. Member Smith?
Simply this, I think we might be putting the cart ahead of the horse. In earlier meetings, we discussed not only having departments come to meet with us, but we also discussed whether or not there should be a format to their presentations. We said we were going, or maybe I said this and saw a bunch of you nodding. Maybe I thought, I don't know. But there seemed to be some agreement around the idea of having them present their program and then answer perhaps a standard set of questions regarding their metrics.
I think we talked about that during one of our meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think that before we have them talk to us, we probably need to tell them what we want them to talk to us about.
Yeah.
That being said, we also might want to give a few departments the opportunity to speak to some of the things that we identified as stuff we don't want them to present on. John, by the way, I'm just going to say this. I go both ways. I'm of two minds about this. In this document, we basically, we set forth this principle that departments should prioritize impact over activities where possible, and I agree with that on some level. It makes no sense to talk to how many people participated when it's not relevant to the impact the program is supposed to have. I would even go so far as to say that some of the 311 metrics that we're seeing aren't relevant to what the program is supposed to do until it is. If we're talking about an arts program, for example, how many people attended is entirely relevant to that. The same with childhood literacy, and if we really want to bake our noodles, every time a department does a survey, how many people participate in that survey is entirely relevant, not only to the credibility of the survey and its results, but also to whether or not the survey effort was worth the money that was spent on it. Surveys are incredibly expensive. So again, I think that we probably need to start with setting up a format. And I don't know if that has to be for, if we can set up one format for all departments, or if we have to go through an iterative process where we think of specific questions to ask specific departments. But that's my thinking at the moment.
Member Johnson?
In the interest of trying to keep this to 2 hours, I will just say I agree with everything that have been said. I think everyone should come here. I think most of the people here have been through the process now for the last year, and we're gonna be a lot more efficient and know what we're gonna ask them and ask of them to be prepared for. So I think that should happen.
Member McGee?
Agreed with Commissioner Johnson, I believe. I'm sorry, I can't see that far. But just one point, thank you, that part. And I'm wearing my glasses. But I just want to say, I don't think we should prep them with questions because I don't want a prefabricated response. Like, if you are doing the work and you are doing what you say you did with the money, like, to some degree, you should be able to speak to the impact of your work. You might not be able to give the specifics of numbers and details, but I feel like if we pre-present the questions, yeah, it's more streamlined, you know, it might be more equitable and fair because everyone's getting the same lens of questions. But then you have a chance to fabricate and give the answer that you think that I want to hear. I don't want to hear the answer you think I want to hear. I want to hear the answer of what was and what wasn't. And I think that anyone that is getting funding, that is coming to present on that, should come prepared to answer a diverse set of generalized questions concerning their programming and their funding and their impact and their outreach and their engagement and their methods of research or how they're getting their data. So that would be my only thing. I don't think that, for me, that I would want that. I want them to be on the cuff and give a true response.
Member Sala?
Well, and maybe not the questions, but we can state that your presentation should focus on impact, et cetera, These, we can just say, focus, we want to hear this, because that's what I want to hear. And what was the impact, et cetera, and just have some key points that we want to make sure they make. Because otherwise, I think what we've seen in the past is it's a dog and pony show. And somewhere in there, you have to figure out, oh, this is what they did with the money. So if we tell them, we want you to focus on these areas, they can still do the dog and pony, but we're going to be sure that they're focusing on the areas that we want to hear about.
I could agree with that. Thank you for crystallizing that thought. I could agree with that.
And I'll just add on to that, I agree. The impact and how that program and the impact then ties back to and relates to the Measure U priority areas, right? So it having to tie back specifically or trace back specifically to, I mean, we already know what the category that the program's supposed to fall with under is, so how is that impact helping to achieve the goals of that category or that priority area, and at being specific in that way, so we're getting kind of that whole picture.
Okay, I mean, I think this is all great feedback. It's pretty clear that this commission really wants all departments to present, so maybe we can organize that.
Yes, and I would love to know for February, beyond, it sounds like you want the fire department, or did you want to shift to the departments that you haven't heard from? I just need a little more clarity on what we're looking for, at least for your February meeting. And then maybe if you all want to create like an ad hoc committee, we can work offline and kind of figure out this structure so we can actually provide a specific template or set of questions for those departments to be able to respond to.
Yeah,
in their presentation.
sure. I think from my perspective, and feel free to jump in, anyone, but we should probably get as many as we can as quickly as we can. So whoever's willing to come in February, I feel like we can make space. Like, even if it was all 5, I think that's fine. The idea here being that, like, we already kind of mentioned that we want their presentation part to be very small, like 10 minutes, and then we would do the questions after that, right? Now, I think in terms of like whether or not we give them questions ahead of time, I think we can leave that to every commissioner. If your question is like very specific and you want to know something very specific, then I don't see a reason that we couldn't send that to them. But if you want to sort of not, if you just want to hear what they're saying from, off the top of their head, then by all means save your question and don't submit it. And then in terms of what do we want to hear, I think we can submit some, I can write up something where, or write an email essentially to you saying, we want to hear about impact measures. We're not here for, members also the dog and pony show. So like, yeah, I don't know if we necessarily need an ad hoc to describe that, and I'd rather actually have sort of everyone's opinion because I think we can do it quickly enough, but yeah.
So just to confirm the 5 departments we would invite, are you sure you want 5 departments? I mean, and then I guess maybe a time limit, and if
Yeah.
you want the same time limit for all departments, or you want to kind of adjust that based on the size of their budget?
My first guess is that most of them won't be able to come on February, but if that is the case, then maybe we can talk about it, but I think it'll be fine either way, honestly, yeah.
Okay, so the 5 departments are Fire, Office of Public Safety Accountability, Human Resources, specifically the Office of Diversity and Equity, Information Technology, and City Attorney. Is that correct? Okay. We will get those requests in.
Cool.
Fire,
What was that?
I think fire is a bigger one, and I don't think you can fit them with the smaller ones.
I would tend to say I think we can. The last fire presentation didn't take very long, given they only have like the one program versus like, and they kind of just said like, this is to help with outreach and then also like to staff the additional firehouses, because without the money, they would have to close one, I think is what they said. But the problem was when we asked them about like, what are your diversity stats? They didn't have that data, which was crazy to me, but okay. I think if we are limiting the presentations to 10 minutes, I feel like we'll fit. Unless people feel really strongly and they want to spread it out, but I think we can make space for them. Maybe they have the, they can ask their neighbors, yeah. Okay. Then any final thoughts on this? I guess there is a recommendation in this agenda item to make an ad hoc for, basically to do what the last, well, actually, this is slightly different because it says the recommendation is for the Measure U budget recommendations, which is the yearly report. Different than the yearly report, Ash, or not quite?
We are on item, sorry. We are referring to item 6, where the staff recommendation is discuss the Measure U Community Advisory Commission's desired approach to developing recommendations regarding FY 2026-27 Measure U budget recommendations, or Measure U budget expenditures, and provide direction.
Okay, I could have sworn in the details in the description, but no matter, it's fine. I think we don't need to create an ad hoc yet, and then if.
And you have the authority to create an ad hoc without a vote, so that doesn't even need to be like motioned.
Sure, okay. Unless people feel that an ad hoc should be made for this, I'm okay with just keeping it to the commission at large. Okay, and then are there any public speakers for this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. I have none.
Okay, I don't think we'll use an extreme amount of time on the next one, but I do want to make sure that there is time for it. So I would like to do the hour extension now, just so we don't interrupt the flow of like picking chair and vice chair, if that's cool.
Certainly. So are you making the motion to extend the meeting?
Yeah, I don't think we'll use it that much of it, but I'll make that motion. I hope so.
Second.
We just need
I will second.
Member McGee for a second. And then we can do a voice vote for this if we're cool with it. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstain or decline? Decline the right word? What do you say?
No.
Just say no. Any no's? Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, great. Well, then let's move on to the last agenda item, which is the selection of chair and vice chair. Just to make sure it's fair for everyone, like I would love to hear if there's anybody interested in these positions sort of before we vote or like even make motions to elect somebody or to push someone. So
Before that, clerk's office, just to clarify, every member is eligible for both designations, chair and vice chair. City Code Section 2.40 does state that a member may serve as a chairperson or vice chairperson for no more than 2 calendar years, and no one on this commission currently has reached that threshold.
cool. Is there preference on going from chair to vice chair first, or is?
Typically, there's nominations and elections for chair and then vice chair. However, if
Sure.
folks can make a nomination for both, and we can take a vote as
Sounds
well.
good. Yeah, I think we'll just do chair first, and then we'll do vice chair. So if anyone is interested in being chair, please feel free to, like, speak up and put your name on the request to speak, and then we'll give you some time to speak for it. I'll just say I am interested in continuing to be chair. I'm honored to be the chair, and I would love to continue doing it for another year, if you guys will have me. But obviously, if there's someone else who's interested, please. Member Noveo.
I would state or make the motion for you to continue your chairmanship for the upcoming year.
A second.
Okay, before we move to the motion, though, is there anyone else who is interested in?
Wait, is anyone interested?
Okay,
We just went right to
fair
it.
enough. Yeah, I just want to. Okay, then I guess we'll take a vote on that.
Did you accept that nomination?
I do accept. Yeah.
Excellent. And would you like me to do the roll call vote, or? Sure. Okay. Wonderful. One moment. Thank you. Commissioner McGee.
Accept with joy.
Commissioner Smith.
Accept.
Commissioner Sala.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook. Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnston.
Yes.
Commissioner Goris is absent. Commissioner Noveo.
Yes.
Commissioner Jurovsky.
Yes.
Commissioner Pascal.
Yes.
Commissioner Fry Lucas. Commissioner Rosa is absent, and Chair Georgioff.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your guys' trust in me. I really do. So I'm happy to serve you guys for another year. Okay, let's move on to vice chair. If anyone, again, is interested in this position, please feel free to queue up, and we can hear your sort of proposal for why you want to be that. And
I would like to put forth my candidacy and my vote and my desire to serve in that capacity. It's just really been fantastic being on this commission, and I do so many different things in community. But sitting in this seat has given me a really broad landscape, an understanding of city legislation, government, politics, all the things. And then I currently consult to the state of California. So for me, it's like I'm at the state level seeing a lot of things. And so sitting on this commission, I've seen a lot of things. And so it would really solidify and round out my experience to really be in that role. And it's been a joy. As busy as I am, making this candidacy statement, my commitment would be that first, and just really stepping up. When I started, I remember I met with Commissioner Georgioff, and we had a great meeting, and it's just been really great to see you step into this, because we never imagined that when we were sitting at coffee, but here we are. And so I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I would love to partner with you.
Okay, awesome. Member Noveo, is that a old hand or a? Sure, no problem. Is there anyone else who is interested in the position of vice chair?
Had a baby, I don't have time. Okay. My wife's pissed that I'm even here right now.
I don't blame you.
But it was fun. I still want to be here. I just don't think I.
Okay, fair enough. If no one else is interested, then, of course, I will give Member McGee my full support, and I would second a motion. Well, actually, I'll first that motion. I'll make the motion to she can be vice chair. If there's a second?
I would like to second.
Okay.
And I think Commissioner McGee has really added a lot of thoughtfulness and depth to our discussion. I'd really like to see her step into that leadership role. I'm glad she's interested.
Okay. Then let's do a roll.
Thank you, commissioners. Commissioner McGee.
Yes, with joy.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Sala,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnston,
Yes.
Commissioner Goris is absent, Commissioner Novell,
Yes.
Commissioner Jarofsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Pascal, Commissioner Fry Lucas, Commissioner Rosa is absent, and Chair Georgioff.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Congratulations, Member McGee. Okay, and on that, we'll move on to metrics and ad hoc committee updates. Oh, wait, are there any public speakers on this last agenda item?
Oh, thank you. For the record, there are none.
Okay, cool. So the metrics ad hoc, again, I think to iterate sort of point, was it agenda item 4? Or no, agenda item 3, actually, where if you guys can review those, the dashboard, report back to Ash any questions or concerns that you guys have, or if you've written down some information about like, hey, I'm curious as to like why this program is costing us so much when they're doing it in some other city cheaper, or whatever the metrics that you're interested in maybe your feedback may be, please funnel that to Ash, and he will funnel it to the metrics ad hoc, and we'll process it there, I guess. Cool. That's pretty much the only update for metrics. Anything else that I'm missing from metrics ad hoc people? No? Okay, cool. Then we'll move on to community engagement. I think we've already gotten a pretty good update on that. The 2025 annual report, 2026 work plan ad hoc committee. This should probably be absolved.
Yes, we can bring that item to the next commission meeting,
Okay.
where you'll formally vote to,
Do we have to formally vote, or can they?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to formally vote to end, but not to create.
correct.
Interesting.
It's mainly because we have to put in the public record a report of what the ad hoc's activities were.
Sure.
So that's mainly, but yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, and then commissioner comments, ideas, and questions. Connor, do you have something you want to say?
I'm sorry, I do have one. To what you said, Ash, in terms of putting in that, that report, where's that report shared out?
Oh, it'll be on the next agenda. So you'll actually have an agenda item that is to, I'm sorry, dissolve. Dissolve is the word, to dissolve the 2025 annual report and 2026 work plan ad hoc committee. And then in that staff report, we'll have just kind of a record of what that ad hoc committee accomplished. And then you'll vote to receive that report and dissolve the committee.
Thank you.
It'll probably be on consent calendar as well.
Yes, good point.
Okay, so yeah, back to the commissioner comments, ideas, and questions.
Yeah, I just alluded earlier on that I've been debating whether I want to write like I very kind of did when I joined the commission, like what is it that we do and what's our purpose and what is the measure you goal? And there was some discussion offline of whether this should be a formal thing. I think I'm just going to write something real quick and then maybe just see if you guys think about it. I've written, unfortunately, hundreds of legal memos in my career. I don't want this to be too formalistic, but just like putting all the information of like the ballot measures, what the Mayor Steinberg said during it, and kind of just aggregating the information of like, this is the universe of what Measure U is, just so new commissioners and current commissioners have a better idea of the landscape of what our responsibilities are and kind of the mandate, which, you know, jumping ahead, it's very ambiguous is probably the ultimate conclusion of it. And today's kind of discussion, I think, amplifies that. And again, I don't think that's necessarily bad, but I think having a kind of clear, concrete idea of what the bounds are might help us. So I don't want to promise that I'll do it in the next month, but it's something that's on my to-do list. And we didn't know when it would be a good time to talk about it, so we just said maybe just at the end. So there's nothing I think to add other than maybe you'll get something in the next month, maybe you'll not. And I would welcome feedback on it if I do give it to you in the next month.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you taking this on. Cool. Any other comments, ideas, and questions? If not, any public comments, matters not on the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. I have none.
Okay, then we can be adjourned before the hour even.